Marty, thank you very much for having me here. And thank you to the rest of the team that's been able to pull this off. Carly, communicating with you has been an absolute pleasure setting this up, so thank you again. Today we're going to be talking about investing with purpose. Typically when you hear about investment, you think of investing to make an ROI in terms of a capital ROI. But today we're going to talk about a different purpose, a purpose of, yes, generating returns, but also making a difference in the lives, making a difference in the communities in which we operate, and really driving real, true economic impact outside of capital ROI. So a little bit about who we are. So WellShall Investments is the private equity firm that I work for, and my father is actually the founder of this private equity firm. And so what we do is we are a Canadian private equity firm with operations throughout Canada, the US, and the Caribbean region. And we employ over 1,000 individuals across these nations. And so our mission is really to be a leading private equity firm, generating long-term superior returns, but while collaborating with BIPOC entrepreneurs, as well as businesses who are able to promote diversity. And so those two for us go hand in hand. And you'll hear throughout the presentation why those two go hand in hand and why it just makes sense, not only from a business perspective, but also from, again, a community perspective in which we all live in. So here are founding principles. This is also my father and our founder of WellShall Investments. And so I want to go through and read out each one of these items here, because I think it's absolutely core to everything that we do, and it really plays into what we're going to be talking about throughout the presentation. So we shall build people up. We shall serve the underserved. We shall always do the harder thing versus the easy wrong. We know in today's world, it's very easy to do the wrong thing. We see it day in, day out from large corporations. We shall make a lasting positive difference in our culture, our stakeholders, and the world. We shall remember that where we started from matters less than where we end. And I want to just pause on that moment, on that item right there. These are the humble beginnings that set the tone for everything that WellShall stands for. This is where my father was raised. He came to Canada when he was 16 years old. And he was raised by his grandmother. He was actually abandoned by his mother at a young age. She left a pot of porridge in that exact tin shack. He was raised in rural Jamaica. She left a pot of porridge in that shack with him and his siblings. And they were there for days until finally the food supply ran out. And the neighbors heard their cries. And so they alerted the grandmother, who at the time, you can see in the back of the field there is the sugarcane plantation. And this is where she worked. And so the plantation actually supplied the housing for the staff and the labor in which went and picked the sugarcane, as well as banana and some other items. But she was a selfless woman. There was never a day in her life that she regretted the circumstances in which life threw at her, but she took it head on. And so that, again, sets the tone for everything we do. By supporting minority groups, by facing a lot of these economic and social issues that we have, we face it head on and we welcome it. Because we can't just rely on the public sector, but it takes the private sector in combination to achieve our goals and our desired outcomes. And we've heard it throughout the day today. So going back, just to finish up, we shall always remember that where we came from fuel our drive to get to where we're going, and we shall give back to the communities in which we work, live, and I like to throw in there, and play. Now, about WellShall, it's a lot of content in there, so don't worry about it, but I'll kind of walk you through it. So WellShall, first of all, why does that name exist? So in 1968, Martin Luther King gave a speech, and he said, "We shall overcome." And this set the tone for equality and justice that really underscores the civil rights campaign that led to systematic racism and eradication throughout the United States. as well as not only towards Black individuals, but across the board for the underserved communities, and that trickled its way across the world. And so WellShall picks up very similar principles, and we look to set out on the exact same mission. Now, looking at it from a corporate perspective in corporate Canada, Black entrepreneurs and Black businesses are severely disadvantaged. As a matter of fact, they're 2 times more likely to close their doors prior to reaching the maturity stage. And so if you look at this graph in the middle here, you'll see that over 75% of Black businesses in Canada today are either in the ideation stage or they're in the startup stage. But why is this important? This is important because these individuals, especially in these phases of their business development, require access to capital to fuel their growth. But not only that, they require the unique strategic guidance and other support that not all businesses require when you look at other groups across our society. Now, the problem is that the financial institutions, your traditional financial institutions, they don't recognize these unique challenges. We heard in one of the panels earlier today that their main focus and priority is the bottom line, generating long returns, especially with the public banks and financial institutions. Because again, they have to appease their shareholders. And if they're not returning capital, then what's going to happen? Their stock's going to drop. Like you heard, they're going to kick out the management, replace it. They're going to have to build it back up. And again, it's very difficult to do that when you're trying to incorporate this into the equation. And there's too many shareholders out there that don't support mixing this into the equation because they don't understand the value. But I'm going to talk to you about why there is extreme value, and I'm going to argue the business case on why this should be incorporated into the ROI. So let's talk about the BIPOC environment a little bit. And for those of you that aren't aware, BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. And the acronym is in no specific order. You could say IPOC or POCID, whatever it is. But I'm going to go with BIPOC today. But why is it an attractive market opportunity? And why have we chosen to play in this space? Well, yes, it's the right thing to do, but also there's a real value that can be generated by focusing on this space. McKinsey did a study that nearly $13 trillion has been forfeited in revenues to the North American economy because of inequitable lending practices across these institutions that we're speaking about. And then you layer that in with consumer behavior that are willing to actually jump ship on their traditional consumption based off of tailored products and services towards them. Matter of fact, they're 30% more likely to switch if they had the options available. And so what that creates is $300 billion of value that's being left on the table because, again, the entrepreneurs that have the diverse thinking to execute on these opportunities are disadvantaged by the lending practices, can't get access to capital, don't have the proper support, and the list goes on. So I'm going to go through a couple of our businesses and kind of what we focus on, and it kind of sets the tone for what we're going to talk about again today. And so we're in over 8 industries that make up our core portfolio, everything from technology to environmental remediation to manufacturing of parts and services, food and beverage, hospitality, professional services, and the list goes on. The first business, which is the business that started this whole thing, was started in 2003, and so it's a proxy solicitation business. And to make it very simple, essentially what they do is when there's an investor in a public company that wants to lobby for change within that company and that organization, you call them an activist investor. And what they'll do is they'll retain Kingsdale, and Kingsdale will put together a campaign in order to sway shareholders to vote in favor of that change. Or vice versa, they could also be retained by the company to fight against activists and put a campaign together to rally shareholders to vote in favor of the company. The second company within our portfolio is ESG Global Advisors. So we've heard quite a bit about ESG today. It's a pretty hot topic on not only investors but also companies as they look to set out on doing the right thing and protecting Mother Earth, as the last panel just detailed. And so what they do is they act as the bridge between the investors and the companies, and really focusing on what these ESG issues are at hand, whatever it be, whether it's the regulatory framework, whether it's communication to the shareholders, or whether it's putting programs in place to make sure that they're diligently thinking about the right ESG topics. BIPOC executive search is exactly what it sounds like. They hire talent for a variety of companies while sourcing BIPOC talent, specifically at the leadership levels. And then they also do audits in terms of EDI audits, as well as training and collaborating with multiple businesses and corporations to ensure that DEI is top of mind within the organization as a whole, not just at the executive level, but across the organization. All24 is a pretty cool business. It's a cashierless convenience store. And if you ever heard of Amazon Go, it's a very similar concept, but one of the first of its kind in Canada specifically, where you can walk into the store, you have an app on your phone, you check out, you go through the self-checkout, and there's no human interaction. And so this is a franchise model which is scaling very aggressively across Canada and into the US. This is an upscale 115-room hotel, which we hold in St. Lucia. If anybody wants some time off, come talk to me, and I can take care of you guys. But a beautiful asset, and we have some other properties in real estate across the Caribbean region as well. Tight in supply, so we call this out west from where we are out in Toronto. But this is a business that operates in Edmonton and Calgary, supplying parts and services to a variety of industries, as well as the oil and gas industry through Edmonton, Calgary, and the west side. QM Environmental, this is one of our larger portfolio companies and one of the larger assets within. They are a fully integrated environmental remediation company that also does hazmat and abatement work. They do demolition, emergency response. And so they are across the nation. They have over 100 or 700 staff, both full-time, part-time, and a large amount of union workers that work there as well. I want to double click on this a little bit, because QM has partnerships, several partnerships, but I want to highlight one of their key partnerships that we call partnerships with purpose. Now, we've heard about corporations, again, in the private sector, the onus being on them to ensure that we're doing the right thing within the communities. And so we take that very similar approach, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes business sense. So we've trained over 750 Indigenous peoples across the nation to, across remediation, demolition, hazmat. And so a lot of these employees have actually now become part-time or full-time employees within. And speaking about employment, Indigenous peoples have also comprised of 70% of on-site labor on QM projects, in a sum exceeding $150 million in value, so some substantial value. And so we also structure a variety of our contracts as joint ventures with a lot of these groups to ensure that we are working in partnership, but also creating economic opportunity and equity, as we've heard about today. Not only supporting, but making sure they have a share in the equity and creating real value for the communities. We've also heard about, government and, federal government specifically mandating that 5% of their contracts have to be tendered out and involve Indigenous groups. And so that's great, that's a start, but it's single digits. And we think that there's a ton of value that can be created by increasing that percentage and that involvement. And so all of our contracts and our work have a meaningful involvement of work contracted out to Indigenous groups. And we look to increase our exposure there as well. We also do youth empowerment work, and I'll combine the last 2 points here. The MPAAMB is an extensive 6-week program in which we train youth and adults in a variety of industries, specifically in environmental remediation. And then we also will take youth from the various high schools, train them, offer mentorship, and then the unique thing there is that we can actually use those, or they can actually use those, that experience as credits towards their high school diploma. Now, we don't only say it, we do it. This is our diverse portfolio of leadership team across those aspects. I just mentioned. And so we won't spend too much time on this, but this trickles into all of our portfolio. It trickles into our passive investments. Again, this is some of our what we call passive investments, which we have typically minority stake in. But double clicking a little bit on this, we have some amazing entrepreneurs that are leading some amazing businesses, and we put our hand up to support because we think they're leading meaningful change in their industries and in the world. Quadify, for one, offers micro-lending services to the underserved community, specifically individuals that are coming to this country with very little credit history. And you know that for traditional financial institutions, they view these individuals as if they never existed because they don't have any credit score, and we know that they lend off a credit score. So what these guys do is they look at a forward-looking approach, and they'll take over 300 data points of a proprietary technology that they built out, everything from their education, their employment, frequency of payment, spending habits, and they're able to provide loans on that basis. That's essentially their underwriting process, and they can provide loans on that basis. Another company, Hutsy Fintech, they do credit building services. And you heard, if you were reading one of the slides earlier, you would have seen that one of the reasons that Black entrepreneurs and BIPOC entrepreneurs cannot access capital is because they have poor credit scores. And so they offer very specific strategies and service offerings, products that will allow these individuals, not only personally, but also if your intent is to go out and get a corporate loan, to really build up your credit. And also they offer payday loans, which again avoids these individuals going to these predatory lending institutions who are charging incredible rates, making incredible profits on the back of these minority groups, especially in this high rate environment. These services are absolutely critical to threading the needle and creating change within these communities. So what are the keys to success? Well, the first one is identifying trends before anybody else in the market. ESG is a very hot topic today. We've built that business over the past half decade. We saw an opportunity in the market. It's top of mind for investors and shareholders and companies. BIPOC Executive Search was another identifying business where we saw an opportunity in the market, especially through the murder of George Floyd and all the activism that came post that. And so we built out a pipeline of individuals that can now slide into these companies, because companies have now put out, again, targets saying by 2025 or by 2030, we're going to increase our diversity and representation amongst our leadership team, amongst our management teams. And so we've decided to step up and say, we'll find the talent for you to do that. It's no longer an excuse to say we can't find the talent. The talent's out there. And so our business is set up to find that talent and put them into these programs. Investing in people, this is arguably one of the most important pieces up here. Now, when I am looking at businesses, yes, I'm vetting the viability of the business from the fundamental piece of the business. You know, is it in a dying market? Does, you know, the entrepreneur understand the market? But really, I'm assessing the entrepreneur. Are they the ones to lead the business to the next level? Are they growth-oriented? Will they accept mentorship? But one of the most important things that I look at is, do they follow the WellShall principles that I read out to you? And if the answer is no, even for one of those items I listed out, then we don't want to be involved in that business, no matter how much profit you're going to bring to the company, because we're values-oriented. Creating value through operational efficiency. So I operate on the operations, mostly on the operations of the business, working directly with the management teams. And so I'm constantly identifying opportunities in which we can find efficiencies within the business. So whether that's cost reduction exercises, whether that's top line revenue generating activities, we find ways to increase the margins of the business. And often what we do, and we recommend to the entrepreneurs, is to take a step back from the business, or take a step back from the day-to-day activities, because it's very easy to get swept into that. And oftentimes you can find opportunities to increase the profitability of the business. And we do say the same thing with employees coming into businesses, to bring a diverse set of thinking to the businesses. It's too often that when you're slid into a system, you just assume the system and you play with the system. When in reality, we say, take a holistic approach to what you're looking at and find unique ways to make changes. Efficient management of working capital. A quick example of that is QM Environmental. Before we acquired the business, if you saw on the slide, it was losing $20 million per year. And so one of the critical things that we did, as simple as it seems, was working alongside the management team to ensure that on their payables and their receivables, they had a ton of payables and a ton of receivables, but because the vendors that they owed money to were knocking on their door and pushing them around to pay the capital, they did so. But they didn't go collect the receivables. And so now what's that done? That's created a significant cash crunch in the business. Right? And now it can't allow them to operate the business efficiently. Financial leverage. QM Environmental, again, is able to do exactly that by raising a large debt facility and to scale the business. We heard again earlier in one of the panels that leverage allows you to build a business and scale the business. So QM has very aggressive internal growth initiatives. And so they can use the capital internally through their internal cash flows to go after those initiatives, whether it's hiring additional staff, whether it's new equipment to execute on work. But now we can take debt and layer on that to the organic growth side of the business and now grow through acquisition. And we can now roll up smaller mom and pop shops that are looking for an exit. We can invest into new technology. And so it's combined, you can really expedite growth. And as you heard earlier, using one revenue stream to build another revenue stream, and the cycle continues. And the last one is synergies. How can you use synergies to really leverage the greater portfolio? And so when I'm looking at new businesses and new opportunities for the portfolio, I'm constantly looking at ways in which that new business can complement any of the other activities within the portfolio. It's absolutely critical. And if you get very creative, there's almost always a use case and application for a synergy with another business within our portfolio. And a good example of that within our portfolio is the Kingsdale Advisors business, the BIPOC executive search firm business, and the ESG global advisory business. All of those businesses are dealing with public companies and advising on public companies. They're dealing with the shareholders and the investors of those public companies. And so they're in the exact same rooms, but dealing with very different issues. But how can they leverage each other? Well, take Kingsdale, for example, when they're lobbying with an activist investor that they want to kick out the management team because they think the management team is leading to underperformance of the company and thus the stock and thus their return on investment. Well, now we can go to BIPOC Executive Search and say, okay, we need to find talent. And they can find exceptional talent. But not only that, they can find diverse talent. So not only are you finding a very strong leader, you're finding a diverse leader who can now use that diversity to increase profitability. And I'll talk a little bit in a moment about how diversity leads to profitability, and the numbers don't lie. This I put up not to toot our own horn by any means, but to show you the value creation by bringing that thinking to the corporate world. And so from 2003 and in just 2 decades, we've been able to bring a $100,000 loan to start that business into over $600 million of assets under management by doing a combination of these things. But collaborating with BIPOC entrepreneurs and uplifting the underserved communities. Now here's the business case for diversity and executive teams specifically. I'm not making these numbers up. This is a McKinsey study that was done a couple years back now, and the numbers are even more astonishing as of recent. But this shows a breakout between gender diversity and ethnic diversity. On the left, you'll see gender diversity. On the right side, you'll see the ethnic diversity. And so the dark blue and the light blue shows the bottom quartile and the top quartile respectively. Now from 2014 to 2019, by introducing gender diversity to the companies, they were able to increase profitability from 15% in 2014 to 25% in 2019. Substantial numbers, and that number continued to increase. On the ethnic diversity side, we see from 2014 to 2019 stays fairly consistent, but by 2019, 36% more profitable by incorporating diverse talent in your leadership teams. So the numbers don't lie. It's not only the right thing to do, but it makes perfect business sense. Now, companies need a systematic, business-led approach to inclusion diversity, as well as a bolder action on inclusion. So let's look at number one. Firstly, we need representation and diversity in leadership teams. Why? Because when these individuals come in, they're in the rooms with the decision makers. But not only that, they also have a job and a responsibility to ensure that that same diversity now trickles into the lower management and the line staff and across the organization. And what we tell entrepreneurs is when you finally succeed in whatever way you define success, on the way there, make sure that you're doing the same thing to uplift and to bring individuals into your company and promote diversity. Because again, it's the right thing to do, but it makes perfect business sense. But you also need to track and put metrics in place to understand how you're tracking towards those targets. Otherwise, you're flying blind, and you can't pivot or adapt your strategy to ensure that you're going to achieve that. Again, there's a lot of the public companies out there that have put mandates out and have said, we're going to achieve XYZ on the diversity quota by 2025 or 2030 or whatever the targets are. And so it's imperative that you track that to ensure that you can make that change and you're leading towards that change. Number two, I want to give you a scenario, and it's not a true scenario, by the way. But imagine tomorrow I start a business. That business is now becoming successful, we're starting to scale, and so now it's time for me to grow my team. So I bring my first employee in, I look at a multitude of resumes, and so the first individual I interview is a middle-aged black man. Well, that's great, we're culturally aligned, he's very strong in the business, and we get along. Continue to build the business, it's time to bring in employee number 3. It's a middle-aged black woman. Okay, we get along, this is great, business is good, culturally we mesh. Employee number 4 comes online. It's a young black guy. Well, that's great. We can talk about the young hip stuff going on, and he meshes really well with the team. But now we're like, okay, we got to bring in some diversity into this team. So we now go out and we bring a middle-aged white man into the equation. Well, it's good. Now every day we have lunch together. And so my employee number 1 has his oxtail. My employee number 2 has his rice and peas, and these are all Jamaican dishes, by the way. Employee number 4 brings in his curry goat, and I'm having my beef patty. Now my 5th hire brings in a peanut butter jelly sandwich for lunch. And I love peanut butter jelly sandwiches, by the way. But imagine if we all start making fun of that employee. We start just jabbing jokes casually. And every day he has to endure this. What are his options? Well, 1, he just deals with it. But we know from a mental health perspective, it's probably not ideal. 2, he conforms to our ideals and he decides to switch what he enjoys eating for lunch. Or 3, he leaves the company. And more often than not, he's going to make the decision to leave that company. Why? Because we didn't create an environment for that individual to succeed. Matter of fact, we created a toxic environment. So why would he want to stay in that environment? And so similarly, we see the exact same things with large corporations and companies out there where they bring in diverse talent, check off their diversity hire, but when the employee fails, they shrug their shoulders and say, well, we tried, we brought in the talent. But what did they fail to do? Well, they brought him in, or her in, saying, well, we're going to bring you in on an equal playing field, when in reality, you should be bringing them in on an equitable playing field. Because you're not acknowledging the systemic barriers in which that individual is facing. You're not acknowledging the unique challenges and support systems that that individual may need. And so we not only say, yes, bring in diverse talent, but ensure once that individual is in the door and that diverse talent is in the door, you're nurturing the talent to ensure success. And that's my challenge to you today. Switching gears a little bit, who's aware of Dragon's Den by show of hands? Okay, oh, it's pretty good. Okay, so this is, for those of you that don't, this is a nationally broadcasted reality TV show that CBC puts on. It airs every Thursday, by the way. They're airing as of right now, so I guess that would be 6 p.m. that they would be airing here. So every Thursday, check it out. But our founder, my father, he's one of the panelists on this show and one of the first dragons on the show. And for those of you that don't know the structure of the show, the way it works is entrepreneurs come in with their business ideas and they pitch a panel of judges who they call the dragons, and they do it in what they call the Dragon's Den. And so they'll come in, they'll say, I want $100,000 for 10% of my company, so that details $1 million valuation, and they have to justify the business and the investment to these judges, and the judges can now decide whether they want to invest or not. Now on the show, you only see about 5 to 7 minutes of the actual pitch, but in reality, the entrepreneur is in there getting grilled by these 5 dragons for about an hour. And so by the end of it, they can now decide, do they want to invest or do they not want to invest? And if they do invest, then it's subject to a more comprehensive due diligence. So I'll handle all of our due diligence that comes down the pipeline for these companies. And again, I'm vetting the businesses, but I'm also vetting the entrepreneurs. And we bring a very similar approach to the Dragon's Den, where our thesis and our investment thesis, obviously not exclusively, but is to uplift the BIPOC community, to promote diversity, to ensure that the underserved are being served. And so I want to show you a clip on one of the entrepreneurs that came in, an absolutely incredible entrepreneur, and he pitched a business. So I'm going to show you a little clip from it. It's pretty engaging, and then we can chat about it after.
And finally, one man looking to infuse the den with a taste of Africa.
Yamela Dragons! That is hello dragons in my native language from Cameroon. My name is Gilles Chianga, I'm from Toronto, and our company name is Taltis Foods. We are here to ask for $60,000 in exchange for 10% of our business. Taltis Food is a food manufacturing company that offers unique, authentic, and healthy African-related products.
That's a lot of products. I want to try them.
Many years ago, I came to Canada, and very soon I started suffering from homesickness. 12 years later, I'm living in one of the most multicultural cities in the world, and yet African products are nowhere to be found. Dragons, today I'm about to show you how you can become an African cuisine chef in a minute.
Nice. All right.
Well done.
I'm excited.
I'm hungry.
So we need 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of broth, and our 1 pouch of our jollof tasty sauce.
Jollof.
I'm going to give a little mixing of this.
Mixing. Jollof.
And voila!
Ta-da!
It's done. Dragons, African cuisine has never been so easy.
Ready to taste
We
it.
have some sample for you.
Ah. Gilles, you are a fun guy.
Oh, thank you, Robert.
Gilles' creations are all based on traditional West African recipes. They include cooking sauces, yam fries, and a variety of canned drinks, like his top seller, Hibiscus Ginger. His products are available online and in select grocery chains across Ontario and Quebec.
Loving this.
Oh, great.
Do you make all these products or just the sauce? You don't make the drinks, you're distributing.
I do make the drinks.
Well,
I do
you do?
make the
Wow.
sauce. I do make all what
You
you can see here.
manufacture all
everything.
of this. Wow.
Yes.
What's your sales so far?
Right now we have $55,000 in sales just on the beverages.
Over what period of time did you sell the 55?
So yeah, 10,000 just last 2 months. The rest was before the COVID.
Before COVID.
Before the COVID.
So during COVID, you didn't make anything?
Nothing. We stopped.
Why?
That's the reason is this. Before the beverage was in the bottles.
Okay.
Yes. So During the COVID, we had to stop because selling in the border was impossible for the shipping. We tried, it was just a disaster. So we decided then to take the 2 years. I decided we improve the recipe, we redesigned the labels, we built our website just
When you
to
say
increase
we, how big is your team?
We is me.
Okay, I get it. No, it's okay to say that. That's fine. Yeah. Just tell me a little bit about your background.
When I finished my high school back home, I have a possibility, the offer to go abroad to continue my studies. So I went to Italy. I completed my master's degree in food processing.
Wow.
And at the time when I was ready now to go back home, I become the main source of support for my family. So it was better for me to stay abroad. And I have to do that because they sacrificed a lot to get me out. You know, for a travel abroad, my dad put everything he has saved.
Where did you study in Italy?
University of Milan.
How many years did you do there?
7 anni.
7 anni. E parli italiano?
Assolutamente bene.
Pazzo, veramente. No, guys, honestly, his accent is perfect. It's flawless right now.
Wow.
Very impressive. Your language, your skill set, supporting your family, moving abroad, like so many people in this country. How did you go from Italy, finishing your master's, to ending up here in Canada and starting the business?
I couldn't go back home. For 2 years, I was doing all sorts of jobs in Italy just to kind of survive. And I heard about Canada, and I said, okay, probably that's the place where I can keep living and continue with my dream of starting a business and keep helping my family.
You'd never been here before?
No.
Oh, wow.
What did you hear about Canada that made you want to come here?
Of course, the Menti is very cold.
That's what I mean.
It's very cold.
Not
But I say, okay, you know, I'm not afraid of challenge. I'm not afraid of challenge. So by the moment I knew that there's that possibility, because they told me it's cold, but people are great. The sky is the limit. That's what I keep hearing.
Jill, is your family here with you, or are you here by yourself?
Just by myself, yeah. I decided to go back to school and I completed a bachelor in education. So for 7 years, I have been teaching.
What do you teach?
I was teaching science in a French public school.
Your background is impressive.
Thank you.
Definitely. And
Thank
you
you.
have an amazing work ethic, obviously, to get to where you have today. So congratulations.
Just give me a second. There's a company called Grace Kennedy in Jamaica.
Grace. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
great.
And if I look at what you have there, I see Grace Kennedy.
No, it's a good point.
Grace is the company that I'm trying to emulate here.
Okay, so I want to be a partner with you. So what I'm going to do is this. I'll do $100,000 for 33% of the company. And I'll also going to give you an operating facility that we can negotiate what the interest would look like for another $500,000.
Wow, that's a really great deal. It's a real
It's
partner.
100 for 33 and 500 as a loan?
It's an amazing offer. Gilles, I'm out because I think you should take that offer. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just bet on the person, and that's what Wes is doing, and you can't have a better partner or somebody who understands some of the challenges that you've faced and some of the challenges you're about to face. I wish you nothing but success.
Thank you so much, Ali.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You are a person that will win, and you are the right type of person to win. Which, like, I am rooting behind you 100%.
Thank you so much.
Because I think you have the best partner up here.
Thank you so much.
So you got one offer on the table.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. All right. Oh. Thank you to
Oh,
all
makes
of
me
you,
cry.
first of all. Thank you. This is a great moment for me. Since I came to Canada, I have been dreaming this. I have been dreaming that day when I can have my own business and contribute to the diversity, because I think the way that Canada is built, it's just giving the place to everyone to participate. And I just wanted to do just that, to bring something. This moment is a great moment for me. I wish my dad was here, but I think he's still here. And oh my gosh. I can do this. So West, I accept your offer.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Good job. I'm really looking forward to working with you. Really am.
Thank you so much.
Buongiorno.
Go build a great business.
Is that your Italian?
That's fantastic.
Good deal, Wes.
Yeah, good.
All right, that was good.
Best partner, Wes. You're the best partner from.
I love how he wants to inspire others, Wes.
That's what it's all about, man. People don't get that part.
Yeah. So how incredible is that entrepreneur? How incredible is the Canadian landscape for providing opportunity, but not without its challenges? Could you imagine if an entrepreneur like this, with some significant talent, expertise, work ethic, a real business, couldn't get access to capital and contribute to the Canadian economy? It's sad. And remember in that slide when I mentioned what the BIPOC environment and the opportunity looks like? Over $300 billion every year is left on the table annually because entrepreneurs like this can't get access to capital. But not only access to capital, they don't have the proper platform. And so look at these stats here from a marketing perspective. This episode absolutely blew up and a ton of attention was turned on this business because of the platform. And so that is exactly what we do here at WellShall. We actually did close this investment with this entrepreneur, Gilles. He's incredible. And he's now able to leverage our platform, right, with our relationships and our network with the retailers across the nation, with our networks with the distributors, creating efficiencies in the supply chain and the logistics. And he's now able to scale his business across Canada. The next step is to get into the US because nothing like this exists. But imagine an entrepreneur like that couldn't get access to capital. He's now not able to add to Canada's economic development. He's not able to provide diversity and culture to the economy. And we just strip somebody of a real opportunity when they're deserving of the opportunity. And so we aim to support entrepreneurs like this day in, day out, not because it's a handout, but because he deserves it. He's worked hard for it. How many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Good, decent amount. So you're very familiar with this, the peaks and troughs of entrepreneurialism. It's a beautiful, poetic, chaotic story. But this is what it looks like. So how can we build for success? Well, these are a couple key items which I pulled out, but of course, you have to, again, ensure that you're in a solid business and has sound fundamentals and you're not in a dying industry and all those other things. But these are some key things that you can do to enhance your success or your chances of success. Number one, mentorship. Mentorship can save you extremely costly mistakes. They can expedite your ambition to get you to where you're going because entrepreneurs and mentors have already done it before. And they understand, as you heard in that clip, the unique challenges that the entrepreneur is going to go through as they go out on their journey. So surrounding yourself with strong mentors in the business, not only within the industry that you're operating in, but again, externally outside, because as you saw again in another slide, that you can leverage your expertise across a variety of industries. Internal reporting, this one's extremely important. We emphasize this to all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are often head down building their business. And so, handling cash flows and handling a P&L on a monthly basis and closing your books and bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff is not top of mind. They want to build and grow the business. But as an investor, it's incredibly important that we have access to internal reporting so we have visibility into the business and we can now guide the business and offer our strategic guidance. And without these internal reports, we can't do that. So that's number one. But number two, it's incredibly important for the actual entrepreneur as they look to build their business. You often hear, building a plane as you're flying it. And that story is so true for so many entrepreneurs. But now can you imagine trying to build and fly that plane with complete fog? I was driving down the roads earlier with Marty, and it was complete fog. Now imagine being in the air, you can't see where you're going, and your instruments are down. How do you know you're going the right way? Well, you don't. And there's likely a mountain in the distance that you're probably heading straight for. But without internal reporting, you'll never know. And a good example of that is a business that we were involved in a number of years back. They had a line item in their budget which detailed something, on the revenue line that was about, the commissions that they were going to take from a referral piece of the business. And so really, it should have been 20% revenue to the company, but they put in 100% revenue, when in reality, 80% was going to the company they were referring the business to. But because they didn't have a solid reporting infrastructure, they were not able to catch this error until the third quarter of that fiscal year. Now that severely hurt the business to the tune of over $2 million, and that hit their bottom line. But if they had sound reporting infrastructures, by January, I guess February, once you close the January books, you should be able to identify that you've missed on that line item. And it will allow you to now go in and dissect the real reason on why you've missed on that line item. And now you can pivot, adapt, and change your strategy to ensure that you hit your targets, and you hit your budget, and you hit that bottom line. Building a team. All the entrepreneurs in the room that put their hands up understand the value of building a team, but also understand the real reality of not having the cash and the capital in the business to be able to go out and hire your headcount. And so entrepreneurs are constantly handling a million different jobs. They're the chief marketing officer, they're the chief sales officer, they're the chief legal officer, they're the CEO of the business. And so they're doing everything in the business. But there becomes a time in the business when it's time to let up the reins a little bit. And a lot of entrepreneurs have a tough time doing that because they want the creative direction and vision of the company exclusively to them. But you have to strategically hire individuals in the business to support you, to enhance you, and enhance the business. I never want to be the smartest individual in the room. And if I am, then I'm probably in the wrong room. Because I'm not going to be the best marketer. I'm not going to be the best business developer. I'm not going to be the best and most technical legal expert out there. But there's people out there that are. And you need to surround yourself with them, whether you're hiring them full-time into the business, whether you're subcontracting it out and leveraging their expertise, or even if you're bringing them in as advisors to the business. It's incredibly important to surround yourself with that team, which leads us into the network. Again, having a strong network, whether it's an advisory network or whether it's coming to events like it is today where you can now network, and Marty's been trying to emphasize the importance of networking, and I've had some amazing conversations with some incredible people here today. But for an entrepreneur, a network allows them to open doors, get them in rooms that they may never have got into, allows them to find mentors to guide them in the right direction in the business. And so it's incredibly important. Marketing, as you saw on the Telta slide from the Dragon's Den clip, it went absolutely viral, and he didn't pay $1 for it. Now, yes, we're leveraging the CBC platform in terms of distribution, but in today's market, where there's so much noise around businesses and there's so much noise on the internet, it's very hard for you to get your name out there and get your business out there. And a lot of you entrepreneurs can understand that same dilemma. But there's a lot of ways that you can market your business, and doesn't mean you're spending a ton of capital to do it. There's a lot of organic ways that it can be done. And so by using social media, by using organic growth strategies and such, you can now ensure that your business is becoming a household name for individuals out there. Last but not least is an exit strategy. We're running low on time, so I'll start to skip through a little bit. But an exit strategy is absolutely important, not only from an entrepreneur's perspective to understand how they're going to get out of the business, but also from an investor's perspective to understand how they're going to get their money out of the business while creating real value. And so when we ask that question to an entrepreneur to say, what is your exit strategy? oftentimes an entrepreneur will say, well, I'm not even thinking about it yet, it's too early. Well, that's a good and bad answer. It's a good answer because now we understand that the entrepreneur is going to be seeking out real value in the business, and a year out or 2 years out or 6 months out, they're not trying to just sell the thing off, sell it short of real value. But it's also a bad answer because, again, how is the money going to get out? Is it going to be through private equity? Is it through a bigger player in the market? Is it through a management buyout option? How are we going to get the money out? So you need to think about this from the very early stages and really articulate an exit strategy. And the last thing is to ensure tax strategies from the very beginning. We always say to entrepreneurs, imagine that this thing becomes the biggest success that you've ever thought it could be, whatever that looks like. Ensure that you have sufficient tax planning from the early onset to take full advantage of your success. It's not the destination, it's the journey. I wholeheartedly believe this. I'm an athlete by background. I played collegiate American football, and we had absolutely grueling and demanding schedules. Every day on a Monday to Friday, you're in the gym at 6 a.m. for 2 hours, and you go to class for the rest of the day. And then by 4 p.m., you're in meetings, reviewing film for another 2 hours, and then you're on the field practicing your plays for another 2 hours. And then you go home, try and get your homework done, and you go to sleep and you rinse and repeat. Now, could you imagine game day comes around on Saturday, games are typically every Saturday, you play for 3 hours, after all those hours that you put in throughout that week, work week, just to lose. Did everything you do throughout that week go down the drain because you lost? No, you got stronger, you've learned. You're getting faster, you're running a better system, you have better chemistry with your teammates now, but you're building for the future, ideally the playoffs or a championship game. And one game, typically in the regular season, does not dictate that. And so it's the same thing with entrepreneurs where we say, ensure that you are taking in the journey on your way to the destination, whatever that destination is. Because if you don't, and you fail to get to that destination, I don't use failure lightly, because I only believe that you failed if you do not learn lessons on your journey. Because the reality is the destination that you set out on in the early onset of your entrepreneurial journey may not be the destination a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years down the line. But again, you have to use those failures, I see them as tokens or building blocks for success. And if you do that, you will successfully get to your destination, whatever that destination is. Last but not least, I want to highlight WellShall Investments' economic impact study. In the over 30 plus businesses that we've supported in over 8 industries, with over 80% of our leadership team being visible minorities or women, we've been able to generate over $1.1 billion in economic output. We've created $700 million plus in gross domestic product output. And we've moved the needle from 2,000 jobs in 2020 to over 3,800 jobs in 2022. And this study was done over the past 3 years, so it doesn't take into account 2023. So you can only imagine what the numbers look like today. Again, I don't put this up to toot our own horn, but I put this up to say that by doing what is right, you can create significant value. You can increase economic value, you can change lives, and you can really bring a diverse set of products, goods, and services and ideals to the community in which we work, live, and play. Thank you. Good time for Q&A? Yeah, we have time. Yeah, okay. I think we have time for a couple questions, so if there's any questions, happy to field them. If not, I'll hand it over to Marty.
Neil's got the microphone there if anybody has a question.
You're making it easy for me. That's great. I like that.
Here we got one.
Okay, good.
Great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it really opened everybody's eyes to a new world, if you want, of investment, at least from where I came from. But I was just wondering, do you have representation in this area for these people to reach out to and share their opportunities?
Yes. Oh, no, that's great. And some of the conversations that I've had earlier is exactly that. I highlighted some of the things that QM Environmental is doing in the industry, but we recognize that it's not enough. And every day, not only in that business, but across the portfolio, we seek new opportunities to elevate communities and these communities that you're referring to. And so I welcome, these conversations. I welcome, opportunities that we may be blind to down in Toronto that we're not seeing. And so I would definitely welcome these conversations. So please have a conversation with me after the session. And we'd love to explore ways that we can continue to promote diversity in all its forms, whether it's partnerships, whether it's support, or whether it's simply opening doors where it makes sense to do so and leveraging our relationships.
Another quick question. The
Yeah.
type of businesses you spoke of are traditionally somewhat consumer businesses.
Yeah.
In Saskatchewan, we're rich in land, we're rich in resources, resource development, and lack capital, especially within the First Nations communities, to exploit these the value that they have is pretty tough to get a hold of. Are you interested in looking at those?
Well, let's have a conversation and find out. Absolutely. Again, there's a ton of opportunity, right? And so we're industry agnostic, as you saw. We're not tied to any one industry. We don't have, haven't taken on a ton of external capital, which guides our investment strategy that we have to play within a box. And so that's the beauty of what we do, is we can look at these opportunities where it makes sense to do so and support these types of businesses or infrastructures.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brentyn. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marty. Good job. Pleasure. Yeah. Oh, I think we have one more.
Hey, Brendan.
Hey.
Thanks for that great presentation. Really appreciate it. My name's Albert DeRocher, and I'm with New Nation Developments, an Indigenous-owned consulting firm. And so I'm here on behalf of some of our clients. And I guess one of the questions I have is the threshold of investment that you look at. I know, listening to your presentation, I know people play a very important part. Of course, as we know, in running a business, management is very important, how they treat their staff, how they treat their customers, and so forth. So I guess what that question is, in terms of the threshold, is there a limit? Like, is it 2 million, 1 million, 10 million?
Yeah, so typically the sweet spot that we say is within the realm of $5 to $50 million. We typically play in the growth equity space. So, when a business has a decent amount of or track record of financials and they're showing profitability and have true product market fit, and they just kind of need capital to expedite their growth, whether it's through technology investment or through other initiatives that we can identify. But our exposure to the startup world and the VC world is definitely there, and we do strategically look at those opportunities, specifically through the pipeline of investments that we have through Dragon's Den. We have a decent amount of exposure there, but we are constantly, again, looking at new opportunities where it does make sense to do so for the VC world. But we don't have a ton of exposure to the VC space. We play in that growth equity space.
And that's the other question I have then. So in the growth equity space, there's a lot of companies right now that have older management. I shouldn't say older, but more experienced management. And
That's a
they
nice
want
way
to
to put
exit
it.
out. They're at their exit strategy.
Right.
And so a lot of them are coming and saying, look, like Albert, do you have an Indigenous company or Indigenous dev corp that's interested in taking over our company? And so, I've got a long list as my arm here of groups that want to, have that exit strategy, but want to still maintain and be part of the management group till such time as they're able to know, my baby's taken care of, I can walk away. Right? So again, that's part of what we do at New Nation, is try to develop those relationships so that, again, equity is such a huge piece, as Terry said, that is the missing link here. And, at the end of the day, we do have the First Nations Bank, we have the BMOs of the world, we have FNFAs of the world, but I think getting that private capital and investment capital is what really triggers and what really generates that ability for these groups to move forward. So
100%. And no, I think that's a really important point. And so
Booker.
And so we typically look at a variety of ways to structure investments, and sometimes it is, the principal in the business, they want to remain in the business for X amount of years, and so you can structure an earn-out basis for the investment where there's cash up front, and then the rest is earned out based off of their involvement in the business. But what you've just mentioned is incredibly important in terms of the equity involvement in the business and ensuring that we're working with these individuals, because often than not, we want these individuals to stay in the business, right? And especially in the case that you've just detailed, where they're going to see opportunities that we're not. And we don't want to just take the realm and bring the creative and whatever the creative direction is of the company, because it may not be the right direction of the company.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things, and I mean, no disrespect to the financial institutions. Let me get that straight.
Well, we have
to work with all of them. But more importantly, the thing is a lot of times we don't have the 10 or 20% equity that's required to get into these deals. Right. And so a lot of deals have gone down and or been missed opportunities because of that lack of equity, right? Yeah. And again, we've got groups like the First Nations Major Projects Coalition who are in Ottawa and in Toronto this past 2 weeks trying to get an Indigenous loan guarantee program put in place. We have one in Saskatchewan. We've had it for just about 18 months and we're still trying to get traction with it, right? There's a lot of red tape sometimes that's put in place. And again, a business deal is a business deal. It's either going to make money or it's not, right? And it's got to make sense on a couple of levels. But at the end of the day, a lot of times they're not meeting that threshold. They're not meeting the requirements to get access to that capital.
Yeah, and that red tape you're talking to is it's strategically put in place there, and we see the same thing across the board. But that's the beauty of private markets, right? It allows us to get creative with how we structure things, and when we see the disadvantages and the red tape that's put out in place, we can get cute with how we structure things and support the minority investments or investors or stakeholders.
All right, thanks.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. Amazing. Thanks.
All right, and thanks, Albert, for the questions.